The Toon Archetype was a set of cards originally used by Maximilian Pegasus in the original Duel Monsters series. Pegasus had an interesting dichotomy with his deck. One half was made up of bright and colourful cartoon creatures that, let's be fair, did have a bit of a sinister edge to them. But overall, the Toon Archetype, well, that portion of his deck seemed to focus more on Pegasus's innocence. Innocence that would eventually be lost after a tragic death in his life. In pursuit of the answer to this event, he would stumble upon an ancient power that would lead him to his fate as the wielder of the Millennium Eye. And as a result, he would also adopt a second series of cards. These cards would also become a part of his deck, and they were the Eyes of Restrict archetype. Now that half of the deck I've already covered in a video right here, you can check it out afterwards. But in terms of the Toon portion, the Toon Archetype made its real-world debut among the first ever wave of Yu-Gi-Oh! Starter deck products. This was all the way back in 2003. After we got starter decks Yugi, Kaiba, and even Joey, we would get starter deck Pegasus. Inside would be many of the iconic cards used by Pegasus from his duel against Yugi at the end of the Duelist Kingdom season. Keep in mind that this was quite a big deal. This was the first time we ever got a deck that was based around a villain's deck. This was the main antagonist deck. I know we had Kaiba's, he was kind of evil, but he wasn't all the way evil, was he? He was misguided. Pegasus, we had his Toon cards. And if we are to believe Yugi's words that the Toon World continuous spell was in fact a one-of-a-kind card that only Pegasus himself had, then that meant we at home could have the most broken card ever in early Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yugi? You ever hear of Toon World?
Well, all I know about it is that it was never put into circulation. It was too powerful. I guess Pegasus must have the only one.
But that begs the question. Why was it so strong? Well, the way the Toon cards worked in the anime was that you needed to have the continuous spell Toon World on the field. Once on the field, it had the effect to transform any monster Pegasus controlled into a Toon monster. Monsters imbued with the Toon ability would be able to essentially defy the laws of physics and take on traits similar to those of actual cartoon characters. In-game, that would translate as opponents being completely unable to damage the Toon monsters in any way. And in fact, the Toon monsters themselves could hide within the pages of the Toon World card. This ability is especially devastating for early Yu-Gi-Oh! As back in those days, you couldn't attack directly. So that would mean you can't deal any damage to Pegasus unless you dealt with Toon World. There is a second big benefit to the Toon ability. However, this is something that wouldn't manifest until the Toon cards were released in the real world. And that was that the Toon monsters had the ability to attack players directly, bypassing any monsters the opponent might have on the field. This effect wasn't present in ye olde Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime because back then you couldn't attack directly, it was just a part of the early game rules, but this effect is what the Toon monsters are most iconically known for now. In fact, if we shift over to the real world, we can see that the continuous spell Toon World, well, when it actually released, it had absolutely no effect at all. This was in fact the only card in the entire game that you pay a cost for, and it just does nothing. We would see the Toon World spell get an alternative artwork eventually that made the card look even more cartoon-like. And if you at home look at Toon World and think, this seems like the type of card that would become a field spell, well, you're right. The only reason this card wasn't a field spell upon release was because, well, this card was created at a time where the rule was that two field spells could not exist on the field at the same time. And let's be honest, that would really suck. If you played a Toon archetype, you put your Toon World field spell on the field, and your opponent activates Mountain, that is your day entirely ruined. That would really suck. So what did they do? They made it a continuous spell card instead. Fast forward to modern day, and the rules have changed. Now you can have two field spells on the field. So what did Konami do? Well, they created a shiny new Toon World. And this Toon World was a field spell. It was given the name Toon Kingdom. The cost to play the card wasn't 1000 life points anymore. It was instead to banish 3 cards from the top of your deck face down. While it is on the field, it is treated as Toon World. and it also grants toon monsters on the field essentially their anime effects. You see, the field spell made it so that toon monsters on the field couldn't be targeted by effects. They also couldn't be destroyed by battle. If they would be destroyed by battle, you can banish the top card of your deck face down instead. So, with this new field spell, the toon monsters got a huge upgrade. And speaking of, we have barely touched on the toon monsters. What's cool about the toon monsters is that they are cartoon caricatures of actual monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! Also, all toon monsters share two archetypal effects. One is that they are all burdened with a summoning sickness, meaning that they are unable to attack the turn they are summoned. The second archetypal effect is that while Toon World is on the field, toon monsters can attack the opponent directly. That is, unless your opponent plays a toon deck as well. If your opponent has a toon monster on their side of the field, that is the monster you have to attack. During Pegasus's first appearance, he actually played 3 cartoon monsters that never got toonified. These were Dark Rabbit, Parrot Dragon, and Toon Alligator. And I'd be amiss if I didn't bring up the elephant in the room when it comes to the toon monsters, and that is Manga Ryu Ran. You see, in the Japanese, this monster was known as Toon Dragon Egger. However, when it was translated, it was called Manga Ryu Ran. It was based on the monster Ryu Ran. So you'd think, oh, this monster isn't a toon monster, then clearly it's got a different name. Well, no. They tried to backpedal by adding into this monster's effect, saying that it is always treated as a toon card. So I know what you're all thinking, how did they fumble the bag this much when it came to this monster's name? Well, it was a translation error. The localization team attempted to adapt this card for international audiences. However, when they watched Pegasus use this card, they saw him use broken Japanese in his dialogue to address this monster. Since, keep in mind, Maximilian Pegasus's second language is actually Japanese. He's American.
I'm sorry, Yugi boy.
So when he spoke about this card, he mispronounced its name as Manga Ryu Ran. This error was taken seriously by the localization team, and so this card was translated into the name Manga Ryu Ran instead of its actual name, which probably would have been Toon Ryu Ran. So that's the origins of how this monster got its name, but its effects are very toon-like. It cannot be normal summoned or set. It must first be special summoned from the hand by attributing 2 monsters while you control Toon World. It cannot attack the turn it is special summoned, and you must pay 500 life points to declare an attack with this monster. If Toon World on the field is destroyed, this card is destroyed. This monster can attack your opponent directly unless they control a toon monster, in which case you have to attack that. Aside from Toon Ryu Ran, there was also a couple other miscellaneous toon monsters that Pegasus would use throughout the Yu-Gi-Oh series. We have Toon Gemini Elf, which was a toon version of Gemini Elf, whose effect was that it cannot attack the turn it is summoned. If Toon World is on the field and it gets destroyed, then this card gets destroyed. While Toon World is on the field, you can attack your opponent directly unless they have a toon monster. And also, for the first time, this monster would have a unique effect, something that would carry on to a lot of the other toon monsters. Toon Gemini Elf's unique effect was, when it inflicted battle damage, the opponent was forced to discard 1 random card. We also had Toon Mermaid, which was a toon version of Red Archery Girl. Not to repeat myself, but this one is the most vanilla of the toon monsters. Its effect is just the archetypal toon monster effects, except you have to pay 500 life points to attack, and it can't be normal summoned or set. It has to be special summoned. While not used by the real Pegasus, Alistair, who was impersonating Pegasus, would use the card Toon Masked Sorcerer, which was the toon version of Mass Sorcerer. It had all the staple effects of a toon monster, however it had the unique effect that if it inflicted battle damage to the opponent, then the owner could draw 1 card. We also have Toon Cannon Soldier, which was the toon version of Cannon Soldier. Its unique effect was that you contribute 1 monster to inflict 500 damage to the opponent. What's funny about this card is that the actual Cannon Soldier, well, that got banned because it was involved in an infinite loop where you just kept tributing monsters over and over and over again. And guess what? The same thing happened to this monster. It got banned in the OCG because it could be involved in an infinite loop. Now, this is my favorite part about the toon monsters. Pegasus would move on to toonify quite a few monsters that belonged to duelists throughout the Duelist Kingdom tournaments. Everybody who got to the finals of Duelist Kingdom, there is a hypothetical monster of some kind that, had Pegasus dueled against them, that is the monster he would have toonified and taken for himself, kind of thing. Some of these did actually happen, but some of them are just hypothetical situations. What were they? Let's take a look, shall we? For Seto Kaiba, he toonified Blue Eyes White Dragon to become Blue Eyes Toon Dragon. This monster doesn't have any unique abilities, it simply has the extra caveat of having to tribute 2 monsters to special summon it to the field. However, its 3000 attack, and the fact that Seto Kaiba absolutely detested Pegasus taking control of his monster and turning it into a cartoon, I think makes this card very memorable. For Yugimoto, Pegasus activated a card called Mimicat, which was known in the Japanese as Copycat. Its effect in the real world was that if you control Toon World and a Toon monster, you can target 1 card in your opponent's graveyard. If it is a monster, special summon it to your field, or if it is a spell or trap card, set it to your field. With this card, Pegasus used it to steal Yugi's Summoned Skull. When he played it, it of course became the Toon Summoned Skull. This card is another example of a bog-standard Toon monster, its only differences being that it is treated as an Archfiend monster, you have to pay 500 life points to declare an attack with it, and you need to tribute 1 monster in order to special summon it. But that's not the only Yugi Toon monster. We have more. Toon Dark Magician, based on the Dark Magician. Its effect is that it cannot attack the turn it is summoned. While you control Toon World and your opponent controls no Toon monsters, this card can attack your opponent directly. Once per turn, you can discard 1 Toon card, then activate one of these effects. Special summon 1 Toon monster from your deck, except Toon Dark Magician, ignoring its summoning conditions. Or add 1 Toon spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Following this, we have Toon Dark Magician Girl, based on the Dark Magician Girl. Toon Dark Magician Girl is unique as it's one of the few Toon monsters that can actually attack on the turn that it is summoned. And not only that, but it also has the effect that it gains 300 attack for every Dark Magician or Magician of Black Chaos in either player's graveyard. Speculation time here, but it seems as if the reason that this card doesn't have a summoning sickness effect is actually because when it first came out, the card text, it was way too long. In fact, it was one of the longest card texts in the game at that point. So it seems effects might have been cut from this card just so they could fit it onto the actual card itself. Regardless though, because of this, it made it one of the best Toon monsters. We have Toon Blackluster Soldier, which is a toonified version of Blackluster Soldier. It has all the standard Toon abilities, but it must first be special summoned from the hand by tributing Toon monsters from your hand or field, whose total levels equal 8 or more. This is a reference to ritual summoning. It also has the unique effect that once per turn, if you control Toon World, you can target 1 card on the field, banish it. Also, this card cannot attack the turn this effect is activated. Aside from this monster being another monster without any summoning sickness at all, you'll notice that quite a lot of Toon monsters have absorbed effects either based on the original that they come from, or from other cards similar in their archetype. For example, Blackluster Soldier here, its banishing ability is a reference to Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, which could do the same. The final Yugi card is Toon Buster Blader, a toonified version of Buster Blader. It cannot attack the turn it is summoned. It gains 500 attack for each dragon monster the opponent controls or is in their grave. While you control Toon World and your opponent controls no Toon monsters, this card can attack your opponent directly. For Joey Wheeler, we have Red Eyes Toon Dragon. This card can't attack the turn it is summoned. While you control Toon World and your opponent controls no Toon monsters, this card can attack your opponent directly. Once per turn, it has the unique effect to special summon 1 Toon monster from your hand, except Red Eyes Toon Dragon, ignoring its summoning conditions. For Joey as well, we also have Toon Goblin Attack Force, a toonified version of Goblin Attack Force. It cannot attack the turn it is summoned. If Toon World on the field is destroyed, you can destroy this card. While you control Toon Worlds and your opponent controls no Toon monsters, this can't attack your opponent directly. If this card attacks, it is changed to defense position at the end of the battle phase, and its battle position cannot be changed until the end of your next turn. We get into the really cool hypotheticals here. What if Bandit Keith got to the finals and dueled against Pegasus? Well, Bandit Keith would have had his Barrel Dragon toonified into Toon Barrel Dragon. Its effect was that it cannot attack the turn it is summoned. While you control Toon World, your opponent controls no Toon monsters, this card can attack your opponent directly. Once per turn, you can target 1 card on the field, toss a coin 3 times, and destroy it if at least 2 of the results are heads. So that's what happened if Keith got to the finals. Well, what would have happened if My Valentine got to the finals? Well, for Mai, we have her Harpy Lady be toonified into Toon Harpy Lady. It cannot attack the turn it is summoned. If you control Toon World, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then, if you control another Toon monster, you can destroy 1 spell or trap your opponent controls. You can only use the effect of Toon Harpy Lady once per turn. While you control Toon World and your opponent controls no Toon monsters, this card can attack directly. So that was everybody from Duelist Kingdom. Well, what if we move outside of the original series? What about Yu-Gi-Oh! GX? Well, Pegasus did appear in some Yu-Gi-Oh! GX episodes. The most prominent was when he dueled against Velian Crowler. He activated the card Comic Hand. This card had the effect that if Toon World was on the field, he could equip it to an opponent's monster. That monster would move to Pegasus' side of the field, and it would now be treated as a Toon monster. It would then be bestowed all of the Toon monster effects. Thanks to this, Pegasus created Toon Ancient Gear Golem, a toonified version of Ancient Gear Golem. It had all of the Toon effects, obviously, however it kept its ability that if this card attacks a defense position monster, it would inflict piercing battle damage. As well, if it attacked, the opponent couldn't activate any spell or traps until the end of the damage step. And while Pegasus never dueled against Zane Truesdale, that would have been a pretty cool duel, because he would have toonified Zane's Cyber Dragon, making it become Toon Cyber Dragon. Its effect was that if your opponent controls a monster, and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. It cannot attack the turn it is summoned. While you control Toon World, and your opponent controls no Toon monsters, this card can attack your opponent directly. So those were all the monsters. In terms of the spells and traps, well, we have Toon Table of Contents. Its effect lets you add one Toon card from your deck to your hand. I might as well quickly talk about this card because it's a funny one. So you'll notice that this card doesn't say in its effect, except this card. So that means you can use Toon Table of Contents to add another Toon Table of Contents. Then you can use that Toon Table of Contents to add another Toon Table of Contents. Then you can use that Toon Table of Contents to add a Toon World, for example. Why is that a bad thing? Well, what it means is that you can thin your own deck with one card, something a lot of people want to do. Don't get me started on spell counters on Magical Library as well for Exodia decks, but that's something people do as well. We also have Shadow Toon, whose effect is if you control Toon World, target one face-up monster your opponent controls, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the attack of that face-up monster. We have Toon Bookmark to add one Toon World or one card that mentions it from your deck to your hand, except Toon Bookmark. They learned their lesson here. If a Toon World you control would be destroyed by card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. Toon Page Flip. If you control Toon World, reveal 3 Toon monsters with different names from your deck. Your opponent randomly picks one for you to special summon, ignoring its summoning conditions. Also after that, shuffle the rest of the cards into your deck. Toon Rollback. Target one Toon monster you control. It can make a second attack during each battle phase this turn. Toon Briefcase. When your opponent summons a monster while you control a Toon monster, shuffle that monster into the deck. Toon Defense. When an opponent's monster declares an attack targeting a face-up level 4 or lower Toon monster you control, you can make the attack a direct attack instead. Toon Mask. If you control Toon World, target one face-up monster your opponent controls, special summon one Toon monster from your hand or deck, whose level is less than or equal to the level/rank of that monster, ignoring its summoning conditions. And finally, Toon Terror. When a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated while you control both Toon World and a Toon monster, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. And with that is the Toon archetype done. Want to learn more about the evil half of Pegasus' deck, his Eyes Restrict cards? Well, I have a video for that. But if you're more interested in something else, then we have this one here. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Catch you later. Bye everyone.